Yes, technologies have advanced, capabilities have advanced with them, and things like this, not that they're not capable of it, they're just, as you had mentioned, not necessarily the right tool for that job. Folks are finding that right tool in other designs, bolt guns namely.
What is up, everybody? Jim to my right, Mr. Ryan Muckenhern across from us, and I hope everybody's ready because we're about to pump you up. That's right, we're talking pump centerfire rifles. A little old SNL reference back when it was good. I don't know. I heard somebody the other day said I was making a comeback. Little Hans and Franz there. That was my best. I didn't go full. You know what I mean? Like, I almost didn't do it. I was a little embarrassed.
You never go
I'm
full
blushing.
Hans.
You didn't go for the Thanksgiving turkey Reebok pump. Pump it up.
That is
I don't remember the lyrics to the hip hop song. But.
Oh my gosh, boy, we could go on. On the table, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. If you're not, we'll tell you. We have a Remington 760 pump in the good old 308. Now, what you won't see on the rifle, it does not have a scope mounted on top. This is Sawyer's rifle. He bought a Tikka, probably partially due to our suggestion. And I think he swapped the scope from that to there. And unfortunately, I feel like that's a little bit of the sign of times, state affairs of, centerfire, big game pump rifles. We used to have a handful of them, really not making too many of them anymore. I mean, I never thought that this would be a discontinued classic, essentially.
Heartbreaker.
It is a heartbreaker.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Just not that popular anymore.
Yeah, convention has a real nasty habit of changing minds. But this thing is as Americana as basketball and apple pie. I
mean, my we've talked about this before. My first big game rifle was a Remington 7600, I think. 7600 pump in 30-06. My dad had one. My brother had, we all had kind of the same. The thought of not having some sort of repeater, like when I would see people with a bolt gun, I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, don't you want
might as well been a muzzle loader?
Right. Don't you want a fast follow-up shot? Like, are you an idiot? Now I use mostly bolt-action rifles.
I understand.
I think there's a lot to these rifles. I think they serve a really cool role. I think they are fast.
What is using one like? I've actually never hunted with a... Have I shot a pump? I don't think I've even shot a pump-action centerfire rifle.
It's very much the same as a pump-action shotgun.
So if it is, then I could see that being pretty much just the detractor for me wanting to use it, other than the fact that it's cool. I think it's really neat. But me wanting to use one in any form of hunting scenario that I find myself in now, in this day and age and time, and shooting styles. Like, isn't it...
There's some drawbacks.
Isn't it frustrating sometimes? Like, where you grew up, in dense woods, like when we talk about somebody who needs not a lot of magnification, which is funny because of who you are now today, but you grew up in an area where...
His face, he's just let the wind out of him. He goes...
For all the times we have to hear about Mark, where he grew up, how
Sword
great it
ferns,
was. Oh, yeah.
Redwoods, salmon.
Oh, it's just so...
I never said redwoods.
Do you see this? See the goosebumps?
There are some red cedars.
So, for all the times we have to hear that, it makes sense. This seems like a gun you want to shoot offhand. Like when you start getting into putting it on a rest and you got that pump there, isn't that a little bit weird?
Can be.
When I left Washington, I'd shot, a handful of blacktails. Not one of them were shot off a rest, either off my knee or offhand.
Yeah.
Because of the sword ferns.
A lot of tall foliage there. Some close shots. I think the first deer I shot was probably inside 100 for sure. The second deer was inside of 50 yards. The third deer I shot was probably 20 yards, maybe a little bit
They're
less.
getting closer.
Yeah, and then
The
killed
the house.
a big 4-point offhand standing. He was in a clear cut. He was probably a couple hundred yards away, maybe 250, something like that.
Oh, okay.
That's where he gets it.
And then
It makes sense now.
shot a nice 2-point from that same dirt hump offhand. That one was definitely a little bit further. I figured out I was hitting, this is pre-rangefinders.
Yeah. Young Mark Boardman.
No way to get a rest. I probably had, I think I had a 2.5 to 10 scope, Ryan. You'd like that part. At the time, that was probably about the highest magnification one I could get. And, I was shooting at this guy. And
deer guy.
Yeah, this deer. And I figured out I was hitting
Statute of
low.
limitations, though.
Because my bullets would hit, and then he'd, look down this way. And I'd shoot again, and he'd kind of look down again. And so then I held high on my last shot. Got him. But that was nice to have a repeater.
Right. It just seems like so many people nowadays with their firearm, the firearm is turning into a bit of a Swiss Army knife of sorts, where you've got all kinds of things people want to attach to it. The forend has become prime real estate for your, this one obviously has a sling, but your bipods, hooking it up to a tripod, Arca Swiss adapters, weights, you name it. And this makes that a little bit difficult, doesn't it?
Well, and I would
Barricade
say
stops.
one drawback,
Craziness.
I definitely could see, back then, getting a rest, if you could get a rest, it's get a rest, right? But most of the time, you really couldn't. And, but this is not necessarily optimal for getting a rest. You've got a little bit of movement in the forend. It's also where you need to operate the firearm if you need to, take a second shot.
And when you shoot it, is it like a shotgun where kind of the inertia almost just starts to unlock?
Depends on the gun, how worn it is, how you hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this, Ryan?
I think a lot of it is yes, we've evolved as shooters, and maybe there's different schools of thought as to what a rifle should be. But I think a lot of it is also social convention. Here at Vortex, we're mixed hardwoods and ag land, right? Every year we'll have dozens of folks bring in full kit, like what we would normally consider a precision style rifle, and it's their Wisconsin deer rifle.
Sure.
They're probably not running into opportunities greater than 200 yards. But that's hot right now. I'm not going to say the flavor of the week, because it's been the progression that we've seen rifles taking.
I've been at Vortex for going on 16 years now, I guess. Yep. Timestamp this podcast. But since I wasn't into any of this long range stuff when I started. Yeah. And I feel like it's just been on an exponential curve.
Absolutely.
Yeah, regardless of where you are in the country, almost.
Yeah. Correct. And so we've seen a replacement of this style of tool with a more modern precision-esque bolt rifle, which is interesting. It's not a necessity. It's a desire, perhaps. There are certainly reasons why it's a smart move, right? Like a very accurate shooting system lends itself useful.
Well, and also when you think about when these rifles came out, pre-rangefinder, pre-ballistic calculator, pre all these things, and I guess I don't want to insinuate that these are inaccurate firearms, right?
No.
But they're maybe just not optimized for those, as technology has advanced. 300 yards would have been a pretty long shot. Yes. And if you made a 400-yard shot, people were talking about it.
There's a lot of people he didn't make a 400-yard shot. He doesn't know how 400 yards is.
So even if the system maybe isn't as stable, as accurate, you also didn't need it because you just weren't
correct.
you were going to get them.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, as technologies have advanced, capabilities have advanced with them, and things like this, not that they're not capable of it, they're just, as you had mentioned, not necessarily the right tool for that job. Folks are finding that right tool in other designs, bolt guns namely. But they're actually famously accurate. So this particular rifle I've actually done a fair amount of work with. And we were shooting some Nosler factory stuff.
Okay.
Sub MOA.
Right.
And how do you argue with that, right?
You can't.
It shoots as good as any conventional bolt action hunting rifle, in a similar class as a hunting rifle, and legitimately sub MOA.
And I feel like sometimes they get a little bit of a bad rap for accuracy.
Yeah. And I think to speak to this particular style of rifles, like the 760, 740, 742, all kind of got lumped together.
Sure.
They are three distinctly different guns. The 760 being the pump, I've observed, generally speaking, stellar accuracy from. The 740 being the more refined auto, generally pretty accurate. 742's grab bag. Yeah, you might have a real sweetheart. You might have a 742. So, yeah. And they're all really quite similar. Of course, their manipulation being completely different. 740 and 742 being semi-automatics, 760 and 7600 being pumps. But like our hunter sight in is coming up here. We'll see dozens of these.
Yeah,
come through.
yeah. They do. You do always see them still.
Dozens
make their way.
And in the northeastern part of the state, I was out there in August for a trade show. That is the rifle. You're a fool if you run a bolt gun.
Right.
You're a fool. And so these are still a very hot commodity.
In some ways,
up north in Wisconsin here,
northeastern part of the country, so
and northern Wisconsin.
Yeah, Maine, Massachusetts.
Well, I mean, and that's where you start getting dense again, and
Yep.
you don't have all this open space that we have down here.
In some ways, like this or an auto, I would say that's optimized.
Yeah,
for those.
Absolutely, it is. Yep.
Those hunting, those places and those tactics that are being implemented. I mean, yeah, I got, like we've talked about before, man, I got that 7600 and I have a BAR, and I threaten to bring them out every now and again, but I don't.
Kick it back old school, Mark. I saw a great picture of you with a dead blacktail.
Oh, I sent that to you the other day. I was going through like a picture book or something. Why did I send that to you?
Well, you were wearing a Crusher
We
hat.
always talk about you.
That's why I sent it to you.
Okay. But that was a cool picture of you, younger Mark.
That was with the BAR.
Yeah.
That was,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So, as you had mentioned early on, Mark, these guns don't really exist in a new formal capacity.
No.
They're simply gone.
I guess kind of the last one that I'm aware of and got it on this list here would have been the Browning BPR.
Oh, no, these post-dated those for a long time.
No, I'm saying, but the last kind of new, like it came out in 97,
Yeah.
short-lived life, ended in 2001.
Yeah. BPRs are very sought after, hard to find, very luxe rifle.
I'm looking forward to talking about this one.
Yes. A BPR is a very buttoned-up gun, but also extremely kind of rare. I had an opportunity to buy a 4-gun set. I think it was 243, 308, 270, and .6. And I think it was $4,000.
Oh,
and
Ryan.
I contemplated it for a long time just because the guns are pretty tricky to come by, and they were like as new. And I didn't. I just simply passed on it. And hindsight being 2020, there's room to grow on that collection, and one of them would have been cool to keep. Really nice guns.
Which one would you have kept?
Likely the .6 or the 308.
Okay.
Fair.
Yeah.
For some reason, I was guessing the 243.
I have those.
Did they do something unique / different with the BPR to others, like they did with the BLR, for example, compared to other levers?
So the BPR, if you look at one and you set it next to a BAR, they look effectively the same when the action is closed. And
it is difficult to see the difference.
Yeah. The only tell that you'd really be able to have is the BPR does not have an operating handle on the bolt. So all that is, of course, controlled by the action rails and in the pump. The way that their stroke worked was interesting in that it went slightly downward. So as you moved it, the forend kind of came down just a little bit.
Does it kind of come down to clear the magazine a little bit? Yeah.
And the action was very short. It was a quick stroke. It was a lovely gun. very well buttoned up.
Very nice looking
Yeah,
rifle.
yep. And so they looked almost exactly like a BAR Mark II.
I need to look it up.
Good looking pieces.
The wood was as I was doing a little bit more research on some of these other models, like that was the one I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
I like that.
The 7600, which is the quote modern version of the 760, that carried on until Remington's ultimate demise on the last time, and then they were completely cropped. I've heard they're coming back.
Really?
Yes.
And why do you think that would be?
Nostalgia?
Yeah.
No, I mean they sell like crazy in parts of the country where folks are still running systems like this. The Northeast, the like Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia.
Sure.
You know, big, tight country, right? And they're a useful gun. And Michigan, Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, they're a very useful gun. And there's a huge subset of folks that this is the only style of hunting rifle they will run, period. Like I said, up there in the Northeast, talking to a lot of the shooters that we ran into at that show, it's called Hunt Stock, really cool show. 2 locations, Westminster, Massachusetts, and somewhere in New York. Like, you know, I like polling people, like what kind of equipment to use. In order of frequency, pump Remington, followed by auto Remington, followed by lever, followed by bolt. And it was like giant percentage pump Remington, smaller percentage auto, smaller percentage lever, smallest percentage bolt.
I wonder why not the auto.
You know, I don't know. Is it reliability? Is it like a lot of these guns?
Perceived
I
reliability.
can tell you I've heard of models that suffered reliability
742.
issues. Yes.
Yeah.
Dude, my BARs.
That thing's a sewing machine.
Yeah.
Yep. And, you know, and a lot of it is dad, grandpa had a 760, 7600, ergo, you know, son, uncle, cousin, either inherited those guns, bought their own, etc. A lot of the guys I talk to have 2. They run a peep gun. They have them set up with a peep sight and an optics gun, which is neat. So
that is neat.
Yeah.
Why does it seem so skewed towards Remington? That
They
was
made
like always Remington that you hear when people have a pump rifle.
They made the most prolific model for the longest amount of time. Yeah. In the U.S.,
others made them, but not. They just never caught on. Huh?
The BPR was effectively the only other one.
Closest try.
Yeah. And you know, there are other guns that are out there that are pumps, like the Colt Lightning rifle was a pump, but it's not like a necessarily a hunting gun. You can get them now still made from like Pedersoli or Uberti or both. You get in like 357 or 45 long Colt, and it would be a viable hunting gun, but it's a whole different animal. Exposed hammer, you know, top eject.
So it's just like a lever gun, but
lever gun, but pump
instead of a lever.
Yep, a 73 Lightning, neat gun. And that's it in the U.S. That's pretty much it. You get a 74, a 76, a 760, a 7600, or a BPR, and pretty much the only opportunities you had for a pump gun.
I did look up that BPR. It is a pretty looking thing.
Yeah, they're neat. They're neat. I very seldom see them. I've never had one come into the shop here at Vortex. In back in the Little Crow Shooting Sports 18482B 202 Circle Street days, it was maybe 2 or 3 examples in centerfire. They made a BPR and rimfire. I saw those with more frequency. So 22 LR, 22 WMR.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, they were neat guns. Look like tiny versions of them, of the centerfire.
That Colt Lightning was kind of the companion rifle era.
Yeah, correct. To the 73 Colt wheel gun. Yep. Lightning was a serious rifle. I mean, a serious rifle. Whipper fast. I mean, just flew through rounds. But expensive to produce, limited quantities, a bit of a complex mechanism in comparison. Ultimately, what would become the 92 Winchester took off as the probably more prolific and successful model.
Okay.
Yeah. But still a neat gun. Lightnings are cool guns.
When I was looking at it, Colt was looking at getting in the lever game, and then I want to say another company. Which company was it? They were looking to get into the pistol game, and they somewhat came to a gentleman's agreement that they would continue to charge, higher prices for their goods instead of competing with one another. But then Colt was like, well, a pump gun's not a lever gun. And then they went the repeater route that way.
Yep. And
was it Winchester? Was it Winchester? Was it Colt and Winchester that they were kind of like?
Maybe Smith.
It was always very confusing to me why it wasn't that one
today.
company would
Never
make both the pistol and the companion rifle.
Neat guns.
They sell them.
Used to get targets made by a gentleman who did a lot of cowboy action shooting, and he shot a lightning rifle as his rifle. It just hauled the mail.
Yeah.
Yep. And then he also shot a 73 lever and a 92 lever, but he liked that lightning because it just bing, 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 fast as you could run the gun.
They're cool guns.
Yeah, very cool.
But like you said, I don't think they ever were, well, they had some, offerings that would be suitable for big game. Was
definitely.
It 4440?
Yep, 4440.
Yeah.
So there was large frame, small frame lightnings.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't really carry on. To date, as far as I'm aware of, there's one other pump rifle expressly for big game.
Okay.
And that's the Krieghoff Semprio.
Wow.
This thing,
Sounds
Ryan,
French.
is very different.
The Semprio is an odd duck.
It's a pump
Semprio.
centerfire where I'd say like in some ways, the 760, 7600, that Browning BPR. The BPR is definitely to me like elevated as far as fit, finish, aesthetics, all those good things. That Krieghoff is a very elegant rifle.
Yes.
And when I was looking at pictures of it, and you and I were talking about this before the podcast, I'm like, how does it operate?
Yeah.
Because I don't see where the slide goes when you need to make this thing work.
I need to look it up again.
Yeah. So, let's look at this as a conventional pattern. So you have a receiver. The receiver is encapsulating the bolt. The bolt is attached to the slide rails, which are actuated by the pump forend. The Krieghoff has a fixed bolt that just kind of hangs out attached to what we'll call the rear receiver. The forward part of the gun, which is the barrel, what I'll call the hood that goes over that, or would be the conventional receiver with ejection port on it, kind of.
Sure.
And then the magazine are the slide rail and are the moving parts.
The whole gun move, like the whole front half of the gun?
Yes. So your
Yeah,
magazine...
because I'm looking at a picture now that's separated.
Yeah, so your magazine, the quote hood, and the fore end and barrel are one part. The rear receiver, bolt, and buttstock and trigger group are another.
That is bizarre.
The mind-bending part about the Krieghoff is the direction of manipulation, whereas we as Americans conventionally, and I'm not going to say even Americans, but globally, we associate a pump-action firearm as having a forend that moves rearward to open and forward to close. The Krieghoff is opposite.
Yeah.
It's forward to open.
Yeah, because you're pulling the whole front end of the gun away to open
Correct.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you appreciate all the same benefits of 760, only it's a Krieghoff. So it is as much as a good, barely used car in a lot of conditions. Bolt stays fixed, whereas on a 760 or a BPR, the bolt moves with it. Bolt stays fixed on the Krieghoff. Barrel moves.
So when you go forward, you are ejecting the cartridge.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Ryan showed me a video of it in operation, and it actually, you said mind bending. It was like hard for me to watch because it was like watching something that's operating backwards.
It seems difficult to attach an optic to.
On the contrary.
On the contrary.
Yeah.
But the whole optic would move then?
Yeah, with the whole system forward. The attachment
There's
part.
so many. It's one of those things where there's so many times people are like, "Oh yeah, if you like manipulate one thing on your gun, you have to re-sight in and all that stuff." Well, when you pull half your gun away and then it just snaps back into place, you're telling me that it's going to just hit that same spot again.
Yeah, so because it's attached to what is the barrel assembly.
Oh, the optic.
Yep.
Oh,
Correct.
yeah. Okay,
So
yeah.
it's fixed to that. It moves forward. The goofy part about that is like, okay,
then-
let's take Sawyer's 760, for example.
Yes.
We put a 2 to 10 on it. We dial it down to 2x. We've got almost an LPVO presentation. You bring the gun up, you see your game animal, you engage, and you can stay on that eye box the whole time.
Right.
With the Krieghoff, you move out of it slightly and then it comes back to
I
it.
feel like the Krieghoff needs a slide whistle noise every time you use it.
Yep. That's funny. It's a cool gun. It is
Effectively, it's a takedown rifle too, right?
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
So the whole thing comes apart, comes back together. It's got like
So
seven.
you'd like that, Jim.
It's got like 7 modes of function, with like various mechanical lockouts, so that you're in like, oh, I'm in carry mode, I'm in fence crossing mode, I'm in safety carry fence crossing mode, I'm in takedown mode. They're pretty, like not pretty, but very different with respect to how guns come together, how scopes go on, how scopes come off, how guns come apart, and then safety conditions. A lot of European firearms have, rather than us having an internal hammer that is cocked upon the manipulation of the gun, or sear engagement that pulls the firing pin and holds it in place until the trigger slips it, a lot of those use cock on command designs where the shooter manipulating what looks like a safety is actually cocking the firearm on the initial.
Yeah.
And then the manipulation of the firearm takes care of the rest. So there's some really goofy designs, and then you can decock it. So
I had no idea.
yeah, it's a little different. Like a Blaser R8 is kind of neat in that you can decock it. Bolt is in battery, round is chambered, rifle's decocked, completely inert.
But then you can recock
Recock
it
it.
with that same thing, huh?
And then if you fire and you manipulate, it's recocked,
Yeah.
but you can decock it.
That's
So if you fire, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Animal went down. More animals may come out. I'm going to decock for now. Something comes up, recock, engage. Or you can just leave it wild and free. It's neat. They do
I like
things.
it.
They do
That's-
things very differently than us. Convergent evolution. We've arrived at the same spot in that projectiles move downrange.
right.
Yeah.
It's a
Hello.
beautiful rifle. That's that Sempre.
Oh, when it's put together. Yeah. It is a beauty.
Yep.
I like it's put together in that photo, so I'm just picturing somebody just like pulling it apart.
What's neat about
Like in the Goonies, that kid's older brother who has that weird exercise thing with the springs and he pulls it apart. And he goes,
That's what you see when you look at this.
that's what I think of when I think of the operation.
the 4.5 movement. Yeah. Jim's got a beautiful mind. Remember the last
Yeah.
time we were talking, he's thinking about syllables.
I'm going to show you an ink blot next. See what you come up with.
Ink blot, 2 syllables.
Yes.
The letter I, number 16 in the alphabet. 16 is divisible by 8 2 times.
A person made a comment on that podcast pertaining to your comment with the syllables, and I think it was something to the effect of they were thankful there was more like them out there.
Oh, that's nice.
You've got
too.
an ally.
I do.
Vitamins you're taking,
One
man.
of these times we should go count syllables together.
Nice.
Cool. How many did you get on that one? 32. Me too. Okay.
Both the Remington and the Browning that had a magazine,
Yep, detachable box mag. Yep. Yep.
which the Browning had the floor plate with the magazine, which I like. But yeah, really cool gun.
How many did it hold? The magazine?
Standard's 5.
5.
Yep. There was a company, I want to say, was it?
Or like I know my Odd 6 was 4+1, or 4 down.
Yeah, okay.
So 5.
Yeah.
But
You get extended magazines for these bad boys. We sold them, and now I can't remember who it was. It was like K Products or something. And I had them behind the till. And if I sold one of those, depending on the shooter, like, is that oh yeah, I need that too. I think they were a bit iffy on reliability.
Telling me I can fit more.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's like I said, there's a pile of them out there. Interesting phenomenon after they were discontinued. The price on these things went bananas. When I was selling firearms,
I need to hold it.
yeah, when I was selling firearms, I would, if a gun like that came in, so it's a nice 760, it's in appreciably good condition.
Yeah.
To me, this is probably like if that shooter came in and said, "Here's my trade stock," I would say that's a magazine release.
This is?
Yep. Slide.
Magazine.
Yep.
Slide is.
Just push forward. There you go.
Oh.
I would.
Like I said, I've never messed with
And then
these
that
before.
on this other side is
This
the slide,
is your
release,
slide.
which actually warrants
Yeah.
pointing out. All the controls on the Browning pump you could operate with like your trigger finger, where you've got the slide release on the left side of the Remington there.
I would. I'd give somebody $200 for this gun on trade at most.
And you'd probably sell it for what?
$250 to $275 maybe.
Yeah.
If it was that high. Now, if you hop on Gunbroker, Guns America, Guns.com, Guns International, these things are selling for hundreds to thousands, depending on what they are.
Really?
Yep. And
I think I've seen 1,500,
Yeah.
2,000.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
because you can't get them. They're a hot commodity.
Yeah.
One of the cooler editions that was ever made that I never bought, but I did sell, was a model called the 7615, which was nothing more than a 7600 that had been modified to accept a USGI magazine, and it was chambered in 223. And
Now you're speaking my language.
I mean, it was at the time, I remember thinking like, this is a solution seeking a problem. There was actually a local police department, well, kind of local, semi-local to us, that was their carbine that they had issued.
Yeah.
Because I believe chief of police or police commissioner felt it was unnecessary to have a semi-automatic platform. And so they gave them pumps. Still used a Stanag mag or a USGI mag, 223, so a wildly viable caliber. And later, I would think to myself, gosh, I should buy one of these things just because it's like novel and interesting. And then I would have a recurring nightmare that I was forced to shoot that rifle in multi-gun competition.
That is nightmare fuel right there.
Speaking of
1,200, like 9 to 1,200 is
Yeah.
kind of what I'm seeing here.
yeah, and they've simmered down a little bit, and I think that bubble kind of popped, but they're still going for way more than they ever cost.
Here's a fancy one for 2,200.
Yep.
Must be some sort of special edition.
Engraved. Yep.
Very nice. Love the engraving.
I forgot now that we're talking of semi-resurgence in these manual operated guns has occurred in the AR space.
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
So going back in time, DPMS, JP, Troy Industries, all made manually operated ARs. There's an outfit, I believe, out of Australia that makes a very clever manually operated AR. I think
This is to get around restrictions.
Restrictions,
right? This
yeah.
is not for some sort of
Yep.
advantageous reason over the semi-automatic carbine.
I'll say this on especially the Troy and the JP pump guns. The DPMS was kind of crude. What was neat about the DPMS, so like on an M203 grenade launcher, they've got this like interesting ribbed fore-end pump thing.
Yeah.
That was incorporated into the design of the DPMS. It looked just cool.
The Troy PAR is like that as well.
Yeah, and the JP is really luxe. It looks like grip panels that you'd put on your forend, and then they use their conventional like 2-inch OD handguard, which I've always loved the fact that JP has never swayed from that 2-inch OD handguard. While everybody else is making these 1.5" like micro diameter handguards that
True.
you burn
Yes.
your hands on when you go into high volume fire, and then when you get into like a barricade or a VTAC barricade situation, like you've got to be super cognizant of where your actual bore is, and you don't have a standoff in that. Yeah.
Yep. I'm seeing
Can you
it.
still buy a Troy PAR?
It's on their website.
No kidding. Yeah. So they got a little bit more of a shotgun forend on there that looks a lot like a master key situation. The neat part about it though is if you had a 300 AAC and it was suppressed, very quiet, the quietest of quiet, and that's nifty. And sometimes to myself I think like, hey, a Bolt and 300 AAC would be cool because man, she'd be whisper quiet, but it's not fast. That is whisper quiet and fast. Yes. So that thought kind of percolates in my brain every so often.
How whisper quiet do you need, Ryan?
Can you be too quiet, Jim? I know this is an internal struggle that you have personally. For uber suppression. Those are really kind of the only things that are hanging out there in a centerfire now, besides the Krieghoff. And
Very
would be
interesting.
viable hunting rounds. So if you get that in 300 AC or...
I know when I was looking at that PAR, I think I saw like 223 and 308.
So if they got it in 308, I mean,
right? I mean, like, but yeah, to your point, very viable.
Buckle up. We're going pumping. Yeah. But they're still spectacular firearms, still extremely capable. Every year, we'll get a picture of a lady or gentleman who has gone on a western incursion, or excursion rather, and killed themselves an elk, mule deer, pronghorn with one of these things. I have seen Harris bipods attached to the forends.
You have, huh?
Yep.
I mean,
you get a little 2-part epoxy and a wood screw, and anything's possible.
Anything.
And you can't reliably attach it to anything else up front. I've seen where they had the clamp-on barrel bipods.
Oh,
bad idea.
Bad.
But yeah, it's a thing.
These slightly less so than the semi-automatic versions, but I do think it's funny when you see these. They just look like a gun.
Yep.
And gun.
Yep. And gun. That's funny.
It's just, it's there. It's a gun.
It's a gun. It works as such.
And when they show up at a hunter site, and they almost always show up in old leather cases that have shiny, well, they were once shiny. They're maybe a little pitted now, brass buckles. And when you pop it open, it's got like either dark green or Wisconsin Supper Club red felt interior, and it's just got that smell. Like
yeah, I was going to say,
some things
they almost have a scent to them.
hit you. It's
I
a
was gonna-
thick smell.
I was going to go with kind of like that sheep's wool lining.
Don't see that as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jim's right. It's usually the felt.
Really?
And
Usually the felt. Reminds me of my grandpa's art kit had a lot of that felt stuff that like some of his fancier art stuff was put in. And it was like you'd open it up and it just was like, bam! It just smells like
It's got a scent.
an old closet.
I'll tell you, this PAR, you can get some interesting looking stuff.
Stuff like accessories for it or what?
No, just like the means of circumventing regulatory challenges. So here's a perfect
Yeah,
example.
there's a lever gun AR. There's a pump AR now.
A PAR that is chambered in 222. That challenges the military cartridge restrictions in certain countries.
Oh,
But
okay.
feeds wonderfully reliably out of Stay Egg Mag. And you get the AR type platform.
You mean it?
222.
You mean it?
What?
It gets
222 Remington.
The 222 gets around.
Yep, because it's not a 223.
I didn't know there was a 222 Remington.
Triple deuce. That is the genesis species of what became the 223 Remington.
Oh, really?
Now, let me tell you this question, Ryan.
Yep.
Would the 222 be considered a lead balloon?
Yes.
But
by today's standards.
By today's standards,
Yes.
but it is in fact being utilized because it's
Yes.
not a for, I guess I'm assuming countries that don't allow.
Disallow the ownership and use of a military standard
Right.
cartridge. So, related but unrelated, one of the more interesting and rare firearms that I sold was the remaining batch of Ruger Mini 14 stainless synthetics chambered in 222 Remington. I believe we got 14 of them, and it was all that Ruger had left in inventory.
Who bought them?
They were sold throughout the country. We sold them on Gun Broker. I don't know that I sold any locally, but
I didn't know if like potentially a group of people bought them.
no, not that I can recall. But it was that's exactly what that was for. It was to get around ownership laws for particular cartridges where semi-autos were allowed, not military cartridges. Ruger Mini 14 stainlesses, because they had a K in their product code. K stood for stainless. And in black synthetic in triple deuce. And it was the neatest thing, because if you had another Mini 14 next to it in 223 or 5.56, they look exactly the same, except you look on the back of the receiver and it just says .222. 0.222. Yeah, 3 twos. Rem instead of .223 Rem. Yep. They were neat.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
I bet that was a fun little gun to shoot.
I bet it was a hoot. Pretty expensive to shoot. Triple deuce is not as inexpensive as.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But pump guns, they're just barely holding on.
I was going to say nearly gone, but not forgotten.
Correct.
And maybe coming back. Maybe that rumor is true.
If they do, I think they do well because there's a lot of people that are. I mean, there's like a finite amount of parts for these. So outfits like Numeric, that has a huge supply of parts, or Allman's or Midwest Gunworks, like they only have so many, and a model has to break in order to harvest parts out of it because there's not new parts production.
What about magazines?
I mean, magazines.
Same story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's what I've been thinking. I'm like, oh boy, don't lose your magazine.
Nope, don't do that. In
Can't
fact,
just go to the store and pick another one up like I used to.
Yeah. I mean, that's a challenge. So if they resurrect the model, write letters. If they resurrect the model, we get a fresh supply of parts. You can keep older guns operating, assuming that they make parts compliances with.
Yeah,
please.
that would be essential, and it'd be so dumb if they did.
I know it. But like I said, if that rumor is true, that would be cool because I think there's a lot of folks out there that would be absolutely chuffed to be able to buy a new production.
What is the status on Remington right now?
Rem arms are functional. So
Okay.
the 700's back. The 700 Alpha 1 is their new flagship rifle. 870 is still thriving. And
I haven't seen a new Remington 700 in years.
I have
Do you
not.
remember what that used to be the standard?
Yeah.
It was. I mean, every bolt gun that came through was just like
80%.
if someone had a bolt gun,
Right.
you might as well just you got a 700 there.
Yeah.
I haven't seen one in ages.
Yeah.
Other than like all this stuff that people build off of like blueprint actions and all that stuff. That's
The part that's like curious to me is like because that was the case, and then I think they procured or absorbed or bought a few different AR companies. Like nearly, owning an 870 was as common as owning a 22. And yet still just up and down struggles.
Yeah.
Like so prominent, like an absolutely just like the 900-pound gorilla or whatever, and yet up and down, in and out.
Who owns them now?
I don't know.
So we rely on I don't know for bringing back a pure American classic.
Yeah.
Well, if I don't know is listening.
So there's 14 current models in the Model 700, including the Alpha 1. The 783, which is an economy bolt gun, is available. There are 6 variants of it. The 870 is a thing, as is, I believe, the V3. Yep, and the 1100. The 1100 lives on. My stars. Maybe they got the friction ring situation sorted out. And then, of course, there's the law enforcement variants as well. So they live on. And like I said, rumor, I heard through a local outfit when we were in Massachusetts last that they're thinking about resurrecting it.
Have you seen one of these new Remingtons lately, or Rem Arms or whatever?
I've never seen.
I'd be curious what
I've never seen a new production gun. I would like to see an Alpha 1. I understand they're quite nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested to see. Yeah.
With the Alpha 1, they were taking a lot of the accoutrement that the custom shop was notorious for putting on, like a Nisika style bolt release, dual ejectors, different extractor types, bolt fluting, finish treatments, etc. And they incorporated it into the Alpha 1, which is good because they took a 65-year-old design and made it a 30-year-old design. So
we're working our way.
Yeah.
Catching up.
And which is great. And I've read some excerpts from shooters that have tested the Alpha 1 and they've been very impressed. New triggers, real triggers, good triggers that are user adjustable, functional, safe, secure, light. So yeah.
Very neat.
My hope is that there is enough demand to bring it back because, like, I sit here, I'm like, oh man, you should bring this back. I've got all sorts of nostalgia connected to it, and it's a cool design. I think they're neat, and they speak deer hunting to me. But then if you're like, oh, you're gonna buy another one? Oh no, I'm not gonna buy another one. But you should bring it back though. You know what I mean? So like, I hope there's enough people that are like, no man,
Yeah,
I
you don't
really,
wanna be that guy.
that's the design, that's the functionality I need to, I don't want to be the guy. You know what you guys need? You need a gloss 1-inch fixed 4-power scope. I'm like, no. Of course, that would look real nice on top of that gun, though.
It would. You're right. You're right.
Yeah,
there's kind of like a thing for me that I'd have to shoot with one for a little bit before I took it hunting, and that is for no logic based or backed reason. It's just that I would feel like I have to build some confidence in this thing before I actually took it hunting, because it's like you take your PRS looking gun and you take that hunting and you shoot. I mean, I slapped my 6R together. I've talked about it before. I slapped it together in the office with no vise or anything, and it shoots half MOA. Like it would have pissed people off if they had seen how it got put together. And it shoots half MOA. And I shot that I hosed 20 rounds through it to get it broke in. And then I shot a 5-round group, or enough to just get it zeroed. And for whatever reason in my head, mentally, I'm like, yep, that dog will hunt, whatever. Don't need to do anything else with it. I'll just keep it around until hunting season starts. This would be a little different for me. I have to be like, let me try a few different ammos, let me shoot it a little bit. Oh, yeah, okay, that was a pretty good group. What happens when I shoot a little bit more and it heats up? Like, oh, man, I got it. I don't know why. It just...
Well, you just, like, I mean,
it's
really,
it's unrightful.
Any gun, you got to, get some confidence with it. I will say, and this is the only one I have experience with, or something very similar to it, they carry very nicely.
They do. They carry like a shotgun.
They carry, and the slide, the area between, I guess, kind of the slide and the magazine there, it almost is like a hand stop. Yeah. Like it's kind of petite, and it just carries it's a very natural carrying gun, balances well. I always liked it when I used it.
I think they're a really wonderful gun. And again, it's one of those things where if you were born into bolt guns, that was the vein that you stayed in. If you were born into these pump guns, that was the vein you stayed in. And there's nothing wrong with them from like an accuracy perspective. They generally all shot pretty darn well.
We should do a throwback deer camp where
say less.
No synthetic.
That would be fun.
No synthetic fibers.
No gun built after 1980.
No gun built after 1980.
I'm in.
Like, I mean, I don't know. You just throw out a few other things along those lines, but it's just a throwback deer camp with guns like this, stuff like people were using back when this was new. I think that would be fun.
That would be really. We should do that for one of the late doe seasons. Let's do it.
I'm in.
Here we go, boys.
I need to go get one of these then. I guess I could take my Lee Enfield, but that's not exactly.
For sale is a super rare complete set of Browning BPR pump rifles, all new in box with hang tags.
All right.
Wait, how many?
243, 270, 308, 30-06, 7 Rem mag, and 300 Win mag.
Oh.
They've gone up. That set, and granted, these are all new guns, 15.5.
I like that they put the 5 on there. We're already talking about $15,000 for a set of rifles, but they're like, no, you need to pay a little more.
But that's for what, like 5 rifles?
That's for 6. Yeah.
I mean, you are getting 6 rifles.
This is out of Pennsylvania. That's pretty cool. Wow. Well, you'll have that.
You got some thinking to do, Ryan?
No. That's probably not for me.
Okay.
We could all pitch in on it for our throwback deer camp. We could find 6 dudes and.
Hey, do you have about $2,200?
Yeah, and then it's just like nose goes for the 7 Red Mag.
Hey,
sorry, bud.
We're buying 6 rifles. Whoever's not here right now.
Yeah,
Rick.
It'll be Rick. I'll kill the biggest deer with it.
It's not the last time I'm going to be thinking about the throwback deer camp. I might have to go with, unless I had my pump shipped to me, because that's still back in the motherland. I think the BAR would suffice.
What year is it built?
It was a 90s BAR, wasn't it,
That would be
Mark?
like... That would
Got
be
a
like,
boss on it.
It'd be like a 96.
Sorry.
It's a 96!
Sorry.
Oh, that was
think,
too cute, Mark.
I think if we do throwback deer camp, you need your 760.
Well, maybe I'll go home at some point and grab it, or
You should go
Have
home,
it
Mark.
shipped or
Say hi to
something.
your family. Get your gun.
Go back to town.
Get
go to that
your-
one bar where you used
Get
to
your
go to.
Scout 2.
Be a town.
Should I go back and drive the Scout back with my 7600 in a rifle
Man,
rack?
dude. With the top off.
A little cold for the top off.
Doesn't matter.
Be a townie.
Be a townie, man. Come
Go
on.
home on Thanksgiving. It'd be like a Hallmark.
Oh, the
movie.
Wednesday
I know,
before
man.
Thanksgiving. Oh man, just have a ball.
Number one, I have a personal policy of not traveling over the holidays, like in an airplane.
That's fair. I get it.
There's a 760 or a 7600 at stake.
And a Scout.
And a Scout. International Scout. Scout 2.
To be exact, with a winch.
That's a 79. Wouldn't that be great? Drive that out to our throwback deer camp.
30,
Oh.
30 rack of beer in the back.
Guys, what are we waiting for?
Yeah, what are we
Hop in
waiting
a
for?
time machine and head to deer season. Well, I got to get my gun, so I'll be working. I don't know if it's going to be a pump. What's the deal with the semi-autos? Were they unreliable or no?
So,
See, when you have a pump, everyone's like, "Well, if you can do this, then it's working."
740s, 7400s, and the 750. Those are pretty darn good guns.
Are they?
Yep. Browning BARs. Outstanding rifles. In fact, we had a BAR Mark III for the Cartridge Talks episode of 308.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember that.
That rifle was cataclysmic accuracy in a good way. Like that thing was fantastic.
That rifle was horribly accurate.
Yeah, it was bad. That thing was.
We had a terrible
That
accident.
thing was sweet. That gun shot really
That was
good.
an elegant rifle, too.
When it got hot, it didn't shoot good, but when it shot lights out. And an attractive gun.
That seems to be the case with a lot of these guns of this era. Is
Yeah.
like they can shoot well for a little bit, but they get hot and
3
quick.
shots and
Yeah,
that's a lot
I mean,
of guns.
it
though.
is. I've got a Kimber Mountain Ascent. It's a 3-round gun.
Well, that gun it has a papier-mâché barrel. Okay, but presumably this would be a more reliable action just because does your arm work? Yes, the gun works.
Yeah.
In theory.
I mean,
Unless you get crud up in here, maybe.
In theory, yeah, sure, I'll give it some points. But the 740, 7400, and 750s were outstanding. They really were. 750s were a cool gun.
Was it a price premium then on the semi-auto? So
Yeah.
that's why people would have gone.
Oh, sure.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it. All right. I was trying to, in my head, I'm trying to wrap my, why it was that the pump became so popular. But yeah.
There you have it, Mark.
Well,
Go
there we
home,
go. We talked about cool rifles.
Get the Scout, get the pump gun.
Apparently, I need to make
I love how many missions we come up with for
pilgrimage
Mark's
home.
life on our podcast.
Yeah, and then apparently we've got a throwback deer camp plan too. So we got a lot done today, guys.
We
gonna
got
be
we
fun.
got to get a really crappy pop-up trailer that's got a lot of mice in it.
Okay.
And we're gonna go pull it.
You know what? Dang it! For the spirit of the camp,
It's got to be done.
it has to be done, I guess. Yeah, and we're gonna use flannel lined sleeping bags.
Yes. And we're gonna have
I think I've got one of those back home too. If it didn't get
when you
thrown
bring it
away.
out, when you bring it out, it's not in a stuff bag.
No,
it's
it's
just
rolled
rolled
up
up
and
and tied with like an
Yes.
old boot string.
one of the other very important parts of this is there is a heater in the camper. It's kind of leaky.
And it's very dangerous.
Yes, and you cannot touch it. You
No.
will burn your
Yeah,
hand.
but
But demolish your
but somehow the camper remains cold.
very inefficient.
I remember my grandfather had a camper that I swear, like, it was probably the equivalent of like dryer lint. Like, we're lucky that a spark never hit it. I mean, I have no idea how old it was. Little bit of a mildew smell to it. And yes, you talk about the leak. There was a propane leak. And I remember staying, like, we'd be sleeping and I would intentionally be fighting falling asleep to make sure that I wasn't dying.
Just
as long as I'm awake,
Pink
I'm
Floyd's
not.
"Comfortably Numb" is just playing in the background. Mark is drifting into a hypoxic state. Yeah, that's what this is all about.
Like,
Slept with
as-
his mouth against like the crack in the wall.
As you're describing all these things, the rifle, the crummy accommodations, the sleeping bags, these are all the things that I had.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's great. And the sleeping bag when you're carrying it out because it's so big and bulky, you have to drop it in the snow at some point.
It unravels.
Oh, it's
Well, because
can't wait.
the shoestrings that you have tying it together inevitably break.
you didn't
and
double
then,
knot them.
Yeah,
Something along those. This is gonna be fantastic.
I can't wait. So awesome.
We need to make the other thing is we can't use modern deer stands, so they have to be like
really
they have to be
half-assed.
plywood. They
Nope.
have to be plywood. and
Really half-assed.
Nails
yeah.
only?
Nails only.
You can use anchor screws.
I don't think so.
My old man, my uncle, and their buddy, we'd go up for deer camp prep, what was called MEA weekend, which was about 3 weekends before the opener of Minnesota's firearm deer season. And they'd go
was one of the letters M from your dad's name?
Minnesota Education Association. It was a 2-day school week. So
Yeah.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the kids had off. So Tuesday night, we would drive up to Uncle Paul's house, sleep on the floor, wake up Wednesday early, drive the rest of the way to north of Red Lake, Minnesota, to a little town called Foretown. We would drive Uncle Paul's late 70s bourbon, and then my dad's Silverado.
Yeah.
Uncle Paul would drive the Shake Shack horrible camper infested with mice.
Yeah.
Back it into this one spot. We'd all unload, brought way too much stuff. And then they'd take the wheeler, a trailer, and a small generator to power corded power tools.
Oh, wow.
And they'd hang deer stands. Later, they would get cordless tools. It was cool. I thought that was the epitome. I thought that's how it was done.
I think for a lot of years it was.
Yeah.
The transition to cordless, was that when your dad got Hilti or Hilti or whatever it is? Or was he
No,
a
at that time
DeWalt
he was
guy?
probably, he's full DeWalt now.
Oh, he is?
You know,
You were the one who got
No, I ended up
Greenlee.
Greenlee for a brief period of time, but then you couldn't get him anymore.
I don't know what that is.
Greenlee's a phenomenal power tool.
Oh, okay.
Very strong. He was Greenlee at work, and then Panasonic. But now he's
that's a
retired.
terrible choice.
He loved him.
Really?
Yep. Now he's retired. He's DeWalt everything. He looked at me. He says, "Oh, Milwaukee." He goes, "A lot of my apprentices use Milwaukee."
Ooh.
And then he walked away.
Wow, he talked down to you.
Power tools have the same. It's like power tools, trucks,
Yeah.
Guns?
guns, chainsaws. I guess that falls into power tools. What's the other? I was thinking of another thing that
Lawnmowers and
definitely
tractors.
has, tractors. That's what it was. Like you're a John Deere guy or whatever.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah, we're green.
That's what my dad ran.
Yep.
Not John Deere's, but that whole thing was my dad ran that, so I run that.
It's true.
My dad never ran 760. Did have a guy in our deer camp though, Joe. I think it was last year he killed his 50th deer in deer camp.
Wow.
50 years he's been hunting that camp. Killed his 50th.
that's cool.
It's super cool. Never missed an opportunity. Never missed a year. His dad started that camp in the 40s after World War II. And then when he was a boy, he would go. And then when he went to college, he met my uncle. And then he and my uncle would go. And my dad came along. And it's like,
That's something else.
yeah, he's still
A lot
going.
of tradition there.
He's still going.
I like that. Cool. All right, guys. Well, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Yeah.
Pump guns, they're cool. Do you have one? Do you still use it? Do you need to bring it?
better.
Do you need to bring it back out of your safe for your vintage deer camp this year? Is there enough demand? Should these manufacturers bring this design back into their lineup?
Write letters.
Handwritten.
Yes. Contact your senator.
And if you've got some cool stories or pictures or whatever, let us know. We think this stuff is cool. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. We'll
See
catch
ya.
you on the next one. Bye.
There you have it, folks. Thank you very much for listening. As usual, give this video a like if you liked it, comment something below, and give us a subscribe to the Vortex Nation podcast channel. It would mean a lot to us. Also, why don't you give us a follow over on Instagram while you're at it, at Vortex Nation Podcast. We'd love to hear from you over there, and we'll keep you updated with all kinds of cool photos and videos from our adventures that we do here. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one. Thank you again. Happy hunting and shooting, everybody. Have a good one.